Okay, grab a seat, everyone. Let's dive right into today's history lecture. We're transporting you all the way back to feudal Japan. Picture this. You're born into a land totally controlled by powerful warlords, defined by some truly deadly battles, and governed by an incredibly strict sense of honor. From literally the very day you're old enough to pick up your first wooden sword, your entire life belongs to one singular path, and that's the way of the warrior. In today's explainer, we're going to look closely at what it actually meant to live, fight, and potentially give your life as a samurai.
But hey, before we get into the nitty-gritty of your rigorous training, I want to start things off with a quick quiz to test your instincts. Think about everything you've seen in the movies or read in history books. What was the absolute greatest weapon these legendary warriors possessed? Was it the bow? Maybe the spear? Their iconic razor-sharp katanas? Or was it something in their mind?
Well, the surprising truth we find in the source text is that your teachers would constantly remind you of this. A samurai's greatest weapon isn't his sword at all. It's his character. In this society, honor is, quite literally, everything. The fundamental rule you're taught from day one is that without honor, a samurai is nothing. I mean, it honestly didn't matter how well you could swing a blade if your character was deeply flawed.
Let's take a quick look at the agenda to map out the chronological life cycle of a samurai for today. We're starting with childhood training, then moving into the way of Bushido, experiencing the battlefield chaos, discussing defending the daimyo, analyzing the technological shift, and wrapping up with their everlasting legacy. All right, Part 1, A Warrior's Childhood, the grueling preparation for a life of honor. Growing up in Japan during the age of the samurai meant your early years looked vastly different from a normal kid's upbringing. The typical games of childhood, those are completely replaced by relentless, everyday preparation. You're mastering the precise strikes of swordsmanship. You're perfecting archery while moving, learning to control a horse without even using your hands, and above all else, developing this unbreakable discipline. That intense physical and mental conditioning is exactly what separates you from the rest of society. Moving on to Part 2, The Way of Bushido, understanding the strict warrior code. As you grow older and stronger, you learn the foundational philosophy that's going to guide every single personal choice you make. Bushido translates to the warrior code. Now, this isn't just a loose set of battlefield suggestions. It is a rigid, non-negotiable framework that dictates your daily behavior and your entire mindset. And even today, this ancient code serves as a really fascinating parallel to modern ethical leadership standards. It proves that true, lasting power requires a foundation of unwavering principles. The foundation of this code actually rests on 4 core pillars: loyalty, respect, courage, and self-control. You absolutely must internalize these to remain completely calm under intense pressure. And notice how self-control and respect are just as vital as courage and loyalty. These rules ensure that you don't just act like a warrior when you have a weapon in your hand, but in literally every single interaction you have throughout your day. The psychological mindset required of you here is absolute. According to Bushido, fear must never control you, not even in the heat of battle, not even when facing certain death. A true samurai accepts both battle and death without a single second thought. This complete removal of fear through intense psychological conditioning is exactly what made them such incredibly formidable opponents on the field.
Part 3, Chaos of the Battlefield, surviving your first true test.
So the day finally arrives for your very first real battle. The source texts paint a vivid, super intense picture of the visceral and terrifying environment you're suddenly thrown into. The battlefield is pure chaos. You look up and arrows completely fill the sky. The enemy projectiles literally blot out the sun above you. This is the moment where theory becomes harsh reality, and all of that grueling childhood preparation is put to the ultimate test.
You grip your katana tightly. Your heart is racing as you watch enemy warriors charging across the open fields. The deafening metallic sound of steel clashing against steel is ringing in your ears. This isn't a controlled, safe training environment anymore. This is a brutal, entirely unpredictable clash for survival. But in this exact moment, where every single decision could mean life or death, something incredible happens. Every movement becomes pure instinct. You don't have time to think, you simply react based on the countless hours of discipline you've endured. It's actually a level of extreme psychological conditioning and resilience that tons of modern professionals study today to navigate high-pressure corporate environments. It's the idea of training so relentlessly that when a massive crisis hits, you fall back on your discipline, not your panic.
Let's look at Part 4, Defending the Daimyo, Service during the Age of War.
By sunset, the battle concludes. If you survived,
You step out of your student phase permanently. You are now a full-fledged samurai, operating in a deeply divided Japan, and your duty is forever bound to the daimyo. Now, the daimyo were these incredibly powerful Japanese warlords fighting bitterly for control over the country. Some sought glory, others wanted revenge. But honestly, your personal feelings about it don't matter at all. Your duty is crystal clear. Protect your lord at absolutely any cost.
Your daily duties involve marching across treacherous mountains and fighting in massive, legendary battles. But defending those towering castles from aggressive sieges, that was the ultimate test. It's remarkably similar to a modern business defending its core market share against fierce competitors. Holding a feudal castle required meticulous resource management, strategic foresight, and absolute structural unity. Your entire existence is totally dedicated to securing the daimyo's control over the land.
I want you to listen to this quote from the text carefully. Your loyalty becomes your greatest strength and your greatest burden. Man, that perfectly captures the heavy personal accountability of living purely to serve another person. It's a massive burden because you've essentially surrendered your own autonomy. And yet, it's exactly this extreme level of personal accountability that define them. It's much like how taking absolute extreme ownership defines the most effective leaders we see in today's hyper-competitive industries.
Part 5. The technological shift, the fading of an ancient era.
As the years pass, two colliding worlds eventually meet. On one side, you have the traditional ways, those deeply ingrained sword skills, the lifelong training, and the strict code of honor. On the other side, you have the highly disruptive and sudden rise of firearms. All of a sudden, a peasant holding a gun could easily defeat a master swordsman who had trained for literally decades. This cold, rapid technological shift changed Japanese warfare forever and effectively doomed the era of the samurai. Which brings us to Part 6, An Everlasting Legacy. Why the code survives today.
While their physical age faded and the traditional weapons of war evolved, their incredible legacy remained completely untouched. Long after the daimyo fell from power, these three powerful ideas survived: the code, the discipline, and the honor. The collapse of the feudal order didn't erase these values. Instead, it embedded them deeply into modern Japanese cultural identity. It profoundly shaped their approaches to business, respect, and community to this very day.
Which leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question to wrap up our explainer today. If their era ended centuries ago, and their weapons were totally rendered obsolete by early firearms, why does the legend of the samurai never die? Why are we still studying them in history classes and making huge blockbuster films about them right now?
The answer is incredibly profound. It isn't because they were perfect warriors, because honestly they weren't. It's because they embraced personal accountability to a code far larger than themselves. In a world that so often prioritizes self-interest, the samurai's absolute dedication to honor, discipline, and loyalty remains a deeply compelling example of human willpower. So, before you go, I want to leave you with this one question to think about. In our modern lives, what is the code that you choose to live by?